And we are live. It's Dr. Justin Marcagiani here in the house. Today, we're going to be chatting about summertime infections. Evan, how are we doing today, man?
Doing really well. Hoping that we can save some people from trouble. You know, the CDC says every year that 300,000 new cases of Lyme happen every year. And that's the official number. So I suspect the real number is probably close to like 500,000 or maybe even more. And then, of course, parasites are big too. I suggested parasites, and he said, hey, well, we can't forget to talk about ticks because people are out and about during the summertime, potentially picking them up. And it's a huge deal. So let's dive in.
Absolutely. So, kind of one strategy that I kind of put forward and we chatted about last week for summertime infections with ticks, especially if you're in your yard and you kind of want to know what's going on in your yard. My wife got a tick last week. And what we did is we sent the tick to the lab. And the reason why is because we wanted to make sure if there was an infection, we knew exactly what the infection was. So we had it tested for Borrelia, which is Borrelia burgdorferi, is the major bacteria in the ticks. We tested for Ehrlichia, Babesia, Bartonella. Thankfully, the tick wasn't carrying any of these co-infections. And I imagine you'd probably find ticks in your area that are carrying, let's say, Babesia. You'd probably see a pattern of that in the locality of your yard or in your area. So I think it's nice to know what kind of infections you may be dealing with. That way you can be on top of it and you can kind of have maybe the tinctures or the herbal formulas that you need to address some of those infections ahead of time. And that way you're not having to play this guesswork, because you know how it is with Lyme. Hey, okay, is it just Lyme where this is a Borrelia burgdorferi kind of bacterial infection, or is it something else like a co-infection? And it's kind of nice to know. That way you can really hone in your treatment. And if your tick comes back positive, you can kind of do it even preemptively or ahead of time, which is nice. And so we use tickreport.com, TICK report.com, and we'll put the link down below, but that's helpful. And we would just pay the $100 and have the expanded panel and get all of the infections pulled up, which is great. And then you can kind of, create a profile for your home where, okay, our backyard, we have a lot of Bartonella. So we're going to be really, really careful. And then one thing you can do on top of that, we kind of talked about it ahead of time, is you can use a product called Wondercide, which is a cedar oil product, natural, no crap in it. There's a couple other ones you can make with different essential oils. You can do cedar, you can do olive leaf, you can do peppermint, but a lot of these oils are going to irritate and aggravate the ticks. So you can kind of create a barrier where you kind of push them outside of your yard using the Wondercide or using the cedar oil, and you can spray that over any forest area or higher grasses or any area where there's bugs or insects or mosquitoes. And it really helps kind of keeping the insects down a little bit and creating this little inflammatory buffer for them in your yard.
Yeah, this stuff was potent. We got the pre-made solution at our old house where you just hook it up to the water hose and you spray it that way. Man, I tell you, that stuff, my God, you talk about potent. I didn't even like it. I'm like, am I a tick? Because I don't even like this thing. I'm going to get away. But after a few days, it does get pretty, pretty benign in terms of smell. And where we were hiking and biking and doing everything was such a huge area that for us, it wouldn't have been sustainable to do cedar oil on the whole thing. But at least in just the immediate backyard, that's what we did. And supposedly it helps with mosquitoes. I don't know. I can't say. I'm not sure.
Oh, it definitely does. Yeah, it does. I mean, you can make your own. Some essential oil lines like doTERRA, they have their TerraShield, which is really good. You can make it a lot of times with a spearmint or a thyme or a clove or a rosemary or a citronella. So there's different citrus oils or peppermint oils that you can combine, and you can make your own kind of natural bug spray. And then you can just put it in a good 16-ounce bottle and just kind of spray, around the perimeter of your property and or any big bushes or high grass where bugs can hide. And I find just doing that kind of every couple of weeks, just take a 5-minute walk around the property with the spray bottle, and that can really kind of help keep a lot of that down.
Yeah, Stephen Buhner, love Stephen, did some really, really great books on Lyme and co-infections. In his book, he has a recipe. So if you all have that book, it's the Healing Lyme book. He has a recipe in there for what he calls like a 99% effective tick repellent. You mix all these essential oils together, and my Lord, it is very, 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 very strong and potent. I don't think I've had any ticks on me, but man, one spray on your legs and you're going to be smelling like, I think frankincense is in there, but you're going to be smelling all day. So you have to shower off after that. But either way, I'd rather smell like essential oils. Now, one other thing too, this is another piece of advice. If you are going in wooded areas, like I've had several clients who've been out camping so far this summer and they have came back with ticks on them or their dogs. It's called Picaridin. It's PIC, like pick Picaridin, and Sawyer is a brand who makes Picaridin. There's other brands out there, but apparently I looked into the literature on this because I don't like man-made chemicals. You know, you hear about DEET, and DEET's bad news. But this Picaridin is like a synthetic pepper extract. It has no smell to it at all, which is amazing because most of the conventional bug spray smell terrible. So when I was looking at a piece of property, I actually got some of this Picaridin lotion, and it's like a 20%. And I put some of the lotion on, and I'm talking the thick of the thick, where I would have typically had 5-6 ticks on me. I had 0. And all I did is I put just a tiny dime size amount on my ankles. And then I put a little bit on the back of my neck and a little bit around my waist because I like to crawl into your pants. And I had no ticks. So I haven't done enough, long-term research on this, but so far Picaridin, just look up Picaridin. It is synthetic, but in terms of toxicity, I can't find anything about it. I think there were a couple rat studies where they were applying tons of it for years and years and nothing ever happened. So it seems benign. It seems safer than DEET for sure. If the essential oils, like they were for me, they were too strong, I got a headache from the essential oil blends, then the Picaridin could be something else to look into.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, just the standard cedar oil is going to be excellent. Just having a lot of times the cedar oil acts as a bug spray, but what it does is, I mean, if you ever treat your dog with a cedar oil bath at all, you can see like the little fleas. You put some cedar oil, they literally run from it, right? And so if you do that, it kind of acts as a good repellent where they're less likely to jump on you because you're not quite as tasty, right? So the cedar oil is great. Badger makes a really excellent insect, or I should say mosquito repellent, and it has a lot of cedar oil in it. So it would work for other bugs and even for ticks. And then one thing I recommend everyone get a tick removal kit. You can get them on Amazon for like 10, $15. But if you ever get a tick, you'll have the ability to pull it off without destroying the tick, keeping it intact. And then you can also send it into the tick report place and get your report. So definitely spend that 10 to $15 to get a tick remover kit. We'll put the Amazon link down below. The one that I've used and I've used successfully the last couple of weeks. I got a tick off my dog recently and a tick off my wife, and it worked great. Keeps it intact. Easy, because the worst thing is you don't want to break that tick open, and you don't want to have half in and half out. So it's a great way to get it out and intact and send it off to the lab.
Yeah, there's a bunch of myths like doing a match head to a tick. Don't do that, or try to twist it or crazy stuff. Don't do that. You just grab on, and once you pinch these guys, you just hold it on them, and then eventually they release. They let go. So I just kind of grab the tick, hold with pressure, and then eventually 3-4 seconds later, it lets go and it just pops off. So I would have done the tick report, but I was pulling so many off at the time. It's like, okay, well, which tick am I going to blame here? So,
I mean, for you, it'd probably just be nice to get a profile just to say, okay, let's put in 5 or 6 ticks, see what comes back. Oh, okay, we got some Bartonella coming up in the backyard. So then we can really have a lot of, maybe we're going to be on some Bartonella support throughout the summer just to be on top of that. But if you look at a lot of the tick removals, one, it comes with tweezers, which is kind of standard, but it's like this little V. And so wherever the tick is, let's say the tick's here, you start with the V, and then as the V comes in, it gets underneath the tick and it kind of pops it out as you go in. So once you're all the way down in the V, you can pull it out.
Yeah.
You at least get its grasp off, and then you can use the tweezers to then pull it off the skin. So that this little V thing really helps, and it just allows you to scoop underneath the tick and help it release. So then you can pull it off better.
Yeah. And fingers crossed, hopefully people don't get them. Hopefully, whether it's the Picaridin or whether it's the essential oil blend like Buhner talks about in the book, or the cedar in your yard, hopefully these are things you can do to prevent it. And if you live somewhere where you don't have them, well, good for you. You're seriously lucky. But that's the tick thing. Now let's talk about some of these other pathogens, things that you're probably going to get from water more than you are from things crawling on you, things that I've personally dealt with and you and I've dealt with clinically hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, which is going to be Cryptosporidium and Giardia, which are 2 infections that really, really start to pop up in summertime because people are playing in the water more. and they can really, really wreck you. Now, here's the annoying thing. I want your comments on this. This is the annoying thing is when you look up crypto or you look up Giardia and you get just the standard kind of CDC information, it always talks about how like immunocompromised people with AIDS and HIV and those are the people who get sick from it. But
Totally.
I don't have HIV AIDS. I don't have cancer that I know of. And I got really sick from those pathogens. So what do you say to those articles where it kind of makes you, it almost gives you a false sense of security because it's like, it's only the elderly or this or that can get symptomatic from these bugs?
100%. I mean, I think there's a spectrum, right? I think the most pathogenic expression of the infection is going to express with people that have significant immunocompromised conditions. Like you see people with AIDS, they die of candida, right? Because of the fact that not that candida kills you, but it's the fact that when you're immunocompromised significantly, it can definitely be something that puts the straw, the last nail in the coffin, so to speak, right? The straw that breaks the camel's back. So that's for sure. Now you could be in a place where, hey, maybe you're just having a little bit of loose stool. Maybe you're getting some brain fog. Maybe you're having a little bit of tummy upset. And we know Giardia actually comes from beavers in the water. So if you're hiking and you consume water, or potentially you're in a lake water, it's possible that you could get exposed to it. So, I'm an avid water skier, water sport guy. And so if you're out in the water a bit, you really want to be on top of that, make sure you aren't swallowing it. If you do by accident, incidentally, which could happen with water sports or just being in the water, right? Some goes up your nose. You want to have some good clearing herbs on hand that you can at least take preventatively, maybe even before or after. And then maybe some extra probiotics on top of that to prevent any infection from kind of gaining a foothold. That's going to be helpful. But with Giardia, I mean, you could have just loose or watery diarrhea. You could have some cramps because of the minerals being thrown off because of the diarrhea. You could have nausea or poor appetite issues. You could have energy issues. You could have cognitive issues, brain fog issues. Of course, that can affect energy and mood as well. And when you throw off the electrolytes, your muscles may not work well. You may have some muscle fatigue as well. So all those things are possible, especially if you start getting diarrhea and you lose your electrolytes. So all those things are, key. So if you have that, we want to do some different stool testing to pick that up. So Giardia is going to be one of the first. Anything else you want to say about that?
Yeah, the symptoms, I guess what I was kind of frustrated about is people will think, oh, that can't be it because it says here it's only going to be elderly or this or that. And then they're like, no, that can't be me. This article says here it's only the, severely immunocompromised people who can get sick. But in my case, I was what I thought I would say I was relatively healthy. And, I ended up losing a ton of weight from Giardia because it massively affected my appetite and digestion. So this, the point of this whole podcast is if everything was decent to average and now all of a sudden you got some weird things popping up in the summer, this is one of the most common infections people are going to pick up this time of the year.
Giardia is going to be a big one. We've talked about it. I think you had it before in the past. Also, the next one's Cryptosporidium. That's another waterborne parasite. Again, you're going to see a lot of the data saying, hey, you got to be immunocompromised. But I can tell you, I've seen patients get it that are not immunocompromised. And what does immunocompromised mean? I mean, are a lot of people at a health level where they could be a little bit immunocompromised? Maybe not at the same level of someone with AIDS or someone who's malnourished in a third world country. But I think people are getting these infections. And I think it's kind of written off that these infections only happen in like third world type of countries where water supply is bad and nutrition's bad, or someone that has a severe immunocompromised condition. But I've seen it happen in others. I know you have too. So we want people to definitely be aware of it. So Cryptosporidium is another water and either a food one. So we're thinking summer, people are in the water, the lakes, the ponds, and these could be something that they catch or get exposed to. So an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure, right? So if we can be on top of these things, where we take some nice clearing herbs ahead of time. In my line, I do the GI Clear 4 ahead of time, which will have the berberines, the golden seal. It'll have some olive leaf, some grapefruit seed extract, some black walnut hulls, and I'll do a couple before, a couple after. And that's usually enough to kind of keep things at bay. And maybe I'll throw in some probiotics that night or that next day or two, some extra dose to really make sure we have some good beneficial bacteria that can help crowd certain things out and flush some stuff out as well.
Nice. Yeah, I don't have her stool test in front of me, but my daughter, when she was 2, she had parasites. We just noticed that she was having some loose stool. So this is a call out to the parents too. If you've got kids, talk to your kids about their poops. If they start getting 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, maybe they don't want to talk about their poops. But this can be important because let's say you're just hanging out on the boat drinking a margarita or something, but the kids are in the water. They're more likely to just maybe on purpose or accidentally swallow some water and get infections. And the parents may not know because the kids don't talk about their poops. So, I've worked with hundreds of kids, and you'll see kids that have mood issues that are linked to these infections. So the parents may say, oh, well, the kid, he's just crazy. He's got anger, or he's got irritability, or he's got this or that. But there's a huge link between mood issues and gut infections. And I tell you, when I had gut infections, my mood was crap because if you think of the domino effect here, the infections are messing up your ability to digest. You don't have enough amino acids, so you may lose weight or muscle mass. Your neurotransmitters can get affected. You could have all sorts of issues downstream. So it's not just like diarrhea. It can manifest in many other ways. So if your kids are crazy all of a sudden, it could be an infection piece, and their liver may not be able to keep up with the toxic load. So if you see dark circles under the eyes of your kids, that may be something to investigate.
Yeah, 100%. So we have our different infections on the parasite side, which could be Giardia. It could be Cryptosporidium. Our stool test of choice for addressing this will be the GI map. We'll put a link down below. If you guys want to reach out and order a GI map from Evan or I, we'll put our links down below so you guys can access it. That's wonderful. Okay. And then we talked about the ticks, right? So what I recommend, if it's happening or is a frequent exposure in your backyard, figure out what your ticks may be carrying. That way you can kind of be on some different herbal support ahead of time. What are some of your favorite herbal support for the different types of co-infections, Evan?
Well, I got to give credit where credit's due. So Stephen Buhner, in his book, one thing I forgot to mention, we may have mentioned it years ago on a podcast, but, and I can't confirm whether or not this worked for me or my wife, because I had so many tick bites that it was hard to say, like, did I prevent the infection from that bite, but that bite did get me. When you have multiple, it's tough. But Andrographis, what we did is we did his recommendation of a green clay mixed with Andrographis. You kind of make a paste out of it, and you put the paste on the tick bite area, and it'll just basically solidify, and it gets kind of crusty. But that on the tick bite area is supposed to help prevent infection. I don't know if it's like a quote sucking mechanism or what to pull the infection out, but the Andrographis clay mixture is supposed to be very, very well preventing infection. Like I said, I've had too many bites to confirm whether or not that worked. But if I do get any more future bites, that'll be what I'll be implementing. And then, of course, on just in summertime in general, I'm staying on Astragalus about 2 to 3 grams a day just to keep my immune system on alert. That, in theory, could help to where if you did get bit with a tick that had Borrelia, which is the bacteria that causes Lyme, in theory, if the Astragalus at the 2 to 3 gram daily dosage is in your system, in theory, it could help to keep the immune system revved up enough to where Lyme would not be able to take place. And then going into the actual herbs and the favorites there, it kind of depends on what you're up against, and it depends on, whether it's a kid, it depends on the constitution of the person. I use a lot of Beyond Balance products. They're a professional company. They've got several tinctures specifically designed for different types of Babesia. They have several for Bartonella. They have some for Borrelia. I'll work in some of those, but man, I'm a big fan of isolated herbs too. So like Japanese knotweed is so amazing and so broad spectrum, and it is kind of an anti-spirochete herb.
With Japanese knotweed, that's basically resveratrol. So Japanese knotweed is an herb, but very, very high in resveratrol, which has some immunomodulating benefits.
Yeah, and you want if you're going to get resveratrol, you want it from knotweed. You don't want it from like grapeseed or whatever else. There's other forms of resveratrol, but you want the knotweed. So that I love knotweed. I've got a huge bottle of it right here, and
that's great.
And then my other favorite tincture here. So this is CSA. This is Cryptolepis, Sida, and Alcornia.
Is good.
And these are the CSA blend is good. I've tried to do some different isolated tinctures like Sida, which can be very helpful for Bartonella. Bartonella can actually come from mosquitoes and from fleas. So if your pets had fleas and the fleas jump off, you can actually get Bartonella from those. So people that think, oh, I haven't had a tick bite. You know how many people I've tested positive for Bartonella that have never had a tick bite that they know of? So, and Bartonella can be a beast regarding, chemical sensitivities and headache at the occipital portion on the back of the head. It can cause anxiety. It can cause depression, despair. It can do a lot of stuff to you. And so the CSA blend is something that can address Bartonella, and it can address Babesia. Babesia, uh, believe it or not, I had deja vu all the time, like 2-3 times a week. I'd be like, oh my God, I've been here before. This is weird. Massive deja vu. Apparently, deja vu is one of the symptoms of Babesia. So that's how I knew to test it. And then I confirmed with DNA testing and showed that I did have Babesia. So the CSA is great for me because, Bartonella showed up for me and Babesia showed up for me. And Cryptolepis pseudocornea, those three are sort of anti-malarial herbs, are kind of traditional anti-malarial herbs, and Babesia is kind of a cousin of malaria in the way it infects the red blood cells. So those are two game changers for me. But does that mean that you need to go buy those? No, not at all. You should definitely work with a practitioner because this stuff gets tricky, and depending on what's going on with the immune system, there may be other priorities. So, Justin and I always talk about kind of painting the picture and getting all the puzzle pieces. So there may be parasites to go after first. There may be H. pylori. There may be bacterial overgrowth. There may be other things first. It's not so simple and clear as I got bit by a tick, tested positive for Bartonella. I'm going to go take every herb that you can take for Bartonella, because that may not be the correct order of operations.
110%. So it's nice to know what kind of infections are going on. So when you talked about the first line defense, you talked about putting a bentonite clay over the tick bite.
Yeah. So you would mix it. You would mix clay and
water?
Andrographis together.
Okay. So
Andrographis tincture.
So you get an Andrographis tincture, you mix it with a little bit of bentonite clay and put that right over the tick bite.
Yeah, turn it into a paste, rub it on, let it dry, and then just leave it there for a few hours or however long. It kind of makes your skin like, I don't know, maybe a little itchy, or just kind of stretches it. Feels like it's stretching it because it's drying. So as long as you can handle it, yeah, keep it on the tick bite area.
So Andrographis, and then you do that, maybe dry it with a hair dryer, and maybe put a bandage over it to keep it from falling off maybe?
The bandage would be smart. Yeah, we didn't do that. I was just losing crusties everywhere, but yeah, the bandage would have been smart.
That makes sense, because you're kind of you're trying to use it as a magnet to kind of pull any toxins or junk out, so it doesn't quite go systemic, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I've heard people say they think it worked. I mean, how do you verify this? It's really tough to prove.
Yeah, it's hard for sure. Now, a couple things that I like. So if we're going to just go over a couple of herbs, you mentioned a couple. You mentioned Sitta acuta, Cryptolepis, or Cryptolepis, however you want to pronounce that one. There's a couple that are just really good, right? Cat's claw is just a really good general herb. You talked about Japanese knotweed for the resveratrol. Really, really good. Noni and neem also tend to be very, very good as well. Silver also tends to be very good for different co-infections. Like Babesia, we may want to do more silver with lime or Borrelia burgdorferi, maybe more cat's claw or Japanese knotweed. For other types of infections, like going down my list here, if we have other types of infection like Ehrlichia, we may use more astragalus, right? So different herbs, different infections, different herbs. But cat's claw is a good one to have in your medicine cabinet. Neem is a good one to have in your medicine cabinet. And I would say Cryptolepis or Sitta or resveratrol, Japanese knotweed, is excellent to have.
Yeah, and also I've tried one called Atoba bark. It's like Otoba. I believe it's an A at the end. Atoba bark. It's like some type of a Brazil tree. There's a guy named Dr. Marty. I'm trying to get him on the podcast. Really cool guy, really smart guy. He talked about that. I bought some tincture and I tried it. Man, that stuff is potent. So I can only handle like a few drops of it twice a day. But the Atoba is supposed to be very, very anti-Borrelia as well. So if you're somebody who's been battling, chronic, whether it's like a what they call neuroborreliosis, where you're having a lot of the cognitive stuff associated with Lyme, the Atoba can be helpful. And then you mix that with cat's claw. So, and then knotweed too, because it's so anti-inflammatory for the brain.
Yep.
So I definitely notice my head gets more clear if I do knotweed. So
yeah, you could probably even do some liposomal or curcumin as well to help.
I've tried curcumin. Hard to say. That's one of those supplements for me. It's hard to tell whether it's doing much, but I know it's helpful. So it is in my cabinet.
Yeah, everyone may respond a little bit differently for sure. So, but it's good. We kind of throw them out there. And again, we're kind of giving you guys some good general ideas on things. Just make sure if you have any of these issues, work with a practitioner so they can kind of help guide you through the process, because it can get a little bit overwhelming and there's a lot of things you could do. It may not be necessary, right? So treating some of these infections acutely may be a little bit different than working with us on a functional medicine program, because when we work with people based on chronic health issues, there's a different program that we may go after than compared to someone dealing with an issue a little bit more acute. So when we're kind of triaging a patient, it's a little bit differently. And then of course, if you get to the point where there's a active Lyme issue that's totally acute and you're symptomatic right away, it may be reasonable to look at doing a doxycycline antibiotic for 2 weeks or so. But again, I tried to stay away from the antibiotics unless it's absolute last case scenario. So if it does get significant or it's acute, you may want to look at a doxycycline. But off the bat, our bias tends to always be going towards the herbs and or using some of the natural expectorants, the adsorbents, right? The bentonite clay with the andrographis over the tick bite seems like a really good first line for anyone with a tick issue.
Yeah, and the problem with the antibiotics is most people, they don't know that their situation's acute. Depending on what article you read, it's such a low percentage of people that actually get the rash and all of that. So you could have these other kind of flu-like symptoms that could be the early stages, fatigue and whatever else, and you not actually know that it's Lyme. So by the time it gets past that acute phase, you don't even know. And it kind of becomes chronic before you even know that you have it. And if you go and do a DNA test, for example, on the urine, it may take a few weeks, or if you do blood, it may take a couple of weeks to get it done. So you'd have to really, really, really catch it early, I guess is all I'm saying.
Well, with Tick Report, if you grab that tick and you send it off to the lab, you can get the results back in 3 days. So I wouldn't be jumping on any antibiotics personally, unless you're symptomatic and you can test that tick and it comes back positive with an infection.
That's the hard part too.
I'd be jumping on the herbs first, because I think the herbs are very, very effective. I think it just depends on how significant it is, how acute it is, how much those symptoms ramp up. That's the problem. The problem with a lot of Lyme stuff is a lot of the side effects of the antibiotics can also mirror Lyme symptoms: joint pain, fatigue, malaise. I mean, go look at doxycycline side effects. You'll see a lot of those side effects mirror some of the Lyme symptoms. So it becomes this, it's die-off, or is it just the antibiotic creating side effects? What is it, right? It becomes a little bit tough to fret that out.
True. Yeah. And I interviewed that guy. I want to say his name was Steven, the guy at Tick Reporter. Anyway, I asked him the question of ticks, and I said, okay, well, their average is around 51% of ticks contain Lyme. So they've tested hundreds of thousands, and I believe it's a 51% positive rate for Borrelia. So if you get bit by 2 ticks, basically you're probably going to get it, because there's 51% of the ticks have it. Unless you're
But it may be an area thing too. Maybe like, hey,
true,
in this area it's 90%, 10%, but this area it's 90%, right? And then it just kind of averages out across the country. So it could be that. That's why I like sending some of your ticks in. And then, we kind of talked about your situation, right? Like you used to be hiking a lot in the forest. And now we're like, all right, let's cut out maybe a wider path in your backyard, so you can be going through there and not have all these branches or high grass hitting your legs and stuff.
Yeah. Well, and I was getting paid. And I was getting paid too, 2009, 2010, I was getting paid to work in the woods. I loved it. It was great, but man, many a times I brought home ticks. So no fun.
Just not worth it now though.
No, it's not at all.
Because I think some of your chemical sensitivity is because of these chronic tick infections.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. So let's try to be on top of that. I think some of the Wonder side is great. And, if you have a lot of woods in your backyard, try to have a nice little path cut for yourself so you can go in there, enjoy nature, and not have these ticks jump on you.
Yep. And this is not like, work with a practitioner. I mean, yeah, we would love for you to work with us. We're honored and blessed for the opportunity to help so many people, but we're not saying that to just sell ourselves. We're saying that because I could tell you personally and clinically, this stuff does get tricky, and you can definitely poke what's the analogy? You could like poke the beehive, so to speak, with these bugs. So for example, if you have Borrelia and you have Bartonella and you try to go after, let's say Borrelia first and not the co-infection may take you down, because the stress of killing can weaken you a little bit. So you may kind of knock down one, play whack-a-mole. You may knock down one infection, and then the other infection can kind of take you down and more symptoms ramp up there. So you really want to be able to check in with somebody where you can know, this popped up. Okay, we may need to switch gears, because if you're stubborn, you're just going to go and try to do all this yourself. And it may extend your timeline, and it can definitely extend your suffering.
100%. Yep. I totally agree. Anything else, Evan, you want to highlight here today? I mean, I think we're on the right track. A couple of questions came in. What's your insight for pregnant women passing worms? Just depends. There's some herbals to do it. I probably would stay away from the herbs if you're pregnant. There's some medications like mebendazole or albendazole / Vermox. You don't really take them that long. Usually you take them, 1 to 2 times a day for 2 days, and then you wait 2 weeks and take it again. I'm not sure about the safety profile of that. If you're pregnant, you'd have to talk to your prescribing doctor. And then there are some natural things like diatomaceous earth food grade that may be okay because it's kind of more dehydrating the worm's exoskeleton, and it's primarily going to stay in your intestinal tract. But if you're pregnant, all bets are off. So my general recommendation is try to treat these things ahead of time if you are going to get pregnant. So you go into pregnancy with a good gut. If you have an acute issue, you really want to talk to your conventional medical doctor, look up the safety profile of those simple worm meds, and then maybe some of the more gentle binders, but you have to do a little bit more research on that. Another question, can we use herbs in the mouth, gargling, brushing for gums like amoebiasis or inflammation? You definitely can. There's a product I use called Dental Sidin. You can use, it's a liposomal formula. That's great. You can also gargle with silver as well. You can even do a 3% hydrogen peroxide as well and gargle with that and spit that out. Those are some really good options. Thoughts, Evan?
Yeah, the pregnancy question, that one's tough because a lot of herbs are off the table during pregnancy. So I guess the question would be, how far along is she? And then you could always wait until you have the baby. There are many, many more things on the table that are safe while nursing that are not safe during pregnancy, mainly because nobody's going to do the study on them. So I've worked with many, many, many pregnant women, but the general recommendation is, hey, depending on how bad it is, like olive leaf has pretty good safety profile. Olive leaf has some general antimicrobial benefit. So may or may not be enough firepower, but we'd probably just try to, get that woman as comfortable as we can through pregnancy, get her to the nursing phase. And then that would open up the door for a lot more herbs.
Like even mebendazole is not really studied during pregnancy. So I would try not to do anything personally while pregnant, unless it's 100% necessary and it's acute. And then on that note, I mean, would I do a diatomaceous? I'd probably stick to a DE food grade over anything else, but that's just me. I mean, it just comes down to you have to weigh your options about how acute the issue is and kind of where you're at in the pregnancy. Because if you can wait, always wait.
True. Yeah, the DE is good. We used that for my daughter when she had pinworms, and they were super resistant to the parental, that conventional drug. We didn't want to use it, but the herbs we tried didn't work. So we brought out the DE, and it cleared it up. So I know, like even in young kids, for example, too, maybe she has some concern about possibly the baby having some kind of worm issue. I would just get through the pregnancy and
what you could do though? What you could do that'd be really good? You could do some pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds should be fine during pregnancy, and that would also have a natural deworming effect. I would do pumpkin seeds. It has a natural compound in there called cucurbityn, and it paralyzes the worm and helps the body eliminate it. So pumpkin seeds would probably be your safe one if you needed a natural support to get rid of it, because pumpkin seeds, I don't think are contraindicated. It's a seed, right? I don't think there's any food that's contraindicated. So that would probably be your safest bet if you need support now.
Nice.
But again, this is not medical advice, just purely entertainment. So talk to your prescribing doctor, OB, and or functional med doc.
Yep. Sounds like easy to implement. And who knows, maybe it works. Maybe it's not enough firepower, but hey, can't hurt.
Nope, definitely can't hurt. Anything else, Evan, you want to highlight today? So we went over like the common stuff that we see in the summertime. We have all the ticks and the co-infections. We went over triage care with that, topical. We talked about a couple of internal things. Before you go internal, definitely reach out to a good functional medicine doc. We talked about the Giardia and the crypto. We talked about some preventative and how we go after that. And then the testing for that being the GI map. I'll put the link down below. We talked about preventative stuff to make your yard safer, to get rid of a lot of the pests and the insects and the ticks and the fleas. We talked about how we can actually test some of the ticks to see what kind of infections your yard may carry and what kind of profile your yard has. That way you can kind of have a lot of this stuff on hand. If your yard's heavily Borrelia or Bartonella, you can have those things on hand, maybe even be preventively taking some of these things during the summer. And you could take some extra precaution to get some of the natural essential oils down to kind of create a buffer zone to keep these bugs out of your yard.
Yep. No, it's all great. I asked the guy when I talked with him, man, can you guys plot all this stuff on the map? I'd love to see an interactive map with all their 50,000 plus test points and kind of click around and click on the states and see a map of where all the infections are. That'd be cool. But he said they hadn't implemented it yet. That was several years ago. That'd be a cool feature though.
It would, because then if I'm in Austin, Texas, and you could see like a lot of Borrelia right there or a lot of Bartonella right there, then you can kind of use that data accordingly.
That would be awesome. Well, if you need help clinically, well, we work with people around the world. So please don't hesitate, reach out. We're here to help, and we're honored and grateful for the opportunity to do so. You can reach Dr. Justin at justinhealth.com, justinhealth.com, me, Evan Brand at evanbrand.com, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Yeah, and if you guys enjoyed the content, thumbs up. Really appreciate it. Put your comments down below. Let me know your experience with different summertime infections. Really like to understand that. We're available worldwide. And also, if you guys don't mind, if you're really enjoying the content, head over to evanbrand.com/iTunes or justinhealth.com/iTunes and write us a review. We really appreciate kind of getting the word out. Our review really helps. It gives us more credibility, and we appreciate you guys learning and sharing it with your friends and family so everyone can be a little bit healthier. Anything else, Evan?
No, that's it. Have a great day.
Take care, everyone. Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.